My shadow moved 3 seconds before me on the screen, a digital echo of my own existence. It was an ordinary night, aimlessly browsing through social media, seeking the next viral trend. The cold light of the monitor painted my face, fingers sliding automatically. My eyes burned slightly, a consequence of digital immersion. That's when I noticed the first anomaly. A brief flicker in a cute kitten video. So fast, I thought it was a compression artifact. But the glitch repeated, this time clearer. A blur in the corner of a friend's photo, almost imperceptible, like a slender silhouette. I blinked and it was gone. It wasn't just a pixel stain. It seemed to have a shape, a distinct outline. My brain registered the image with an acuity that my logic stubbornly dismissed. It was fatigue, blurred vision, or just a bug. I convinced myself of the prosaic explanation, but the image, however fleeting, remained in my mind, a seed of discomfort. The glitches became more frequent and sinister, with an intentionality that defied technical explanation. Not just in random videos or photos, but in my own feeds and posts, as if the anomaly was following me. In a selfie for Instagram, with my forced smile, a distorted and pale face seemed to form in the mirror's reflection in the background, disappearing as I approached. It wasn't mine. I began hearing faint whispers, like radio interference, in pure audio, especially with headphones. Not a discernible voice, but the suggestion of an underwater murmur. My friends, when I asked, noticed nothing. "You're getting paranoid," said my friend Leo, laughing. But the paranoia took root, growing like a silent parasite in my mind. I felt something was watching me through the phone's lens, the screen. With each scroll, each notification, I expected the next echo, the next distortion, the next evidence of that invasive presence. That's when I began to see the figure more clearly, though always at a glance. A tall, slender man with hunched shoulders as if carrying an invisible burden, and what appeared to be an empty face. Not a face without eyes or nose, but a smooth surface, featureless, a vacuum in place of features. He appeared in the corners of urban photos, in the final seconds of videos, always with his back turned, but with his head slightly tilted, as if looking at me. I tried to prove it was just an optical illusion, a pareidolia generated by exhaustion, but the consistency of his appearance and the invariability of his form were disturbing. I began to doubt my own sanity, the distinction between the real and the product of digital fatigue. The internet, once a tool for connection, became a window to the abyss, feeling the cold air coming from there, an air that seemed to carry the metallic smell of static electricity and despair. Each new post seemed like a provocation. The pleasure of creating and sharing was replaced by constant apprehension, a dark anticipation. I found myself trapped, unable to stop looking, fearing what I would find, but even more what I would lose if I looked away. The culmination came during a live stream. I was fooling around, showing my setup and chatting with the audience. In the middle of the broadcast, a viewer commented, "There's someone behind you." I laughed, nervous, thinking it was a joke. Another said, with intensity, "No, seriously. I saw it. He's there." My heart raced. I tried to turn my head slowly. A cutting, visceral cold ran down my spine before I could move. On the screen, in my feed's viewing window, for a fraction of a second, the figure was there. Clear, sharp, without a trace of glitch. Behind me, almost touching my hair. His hunched shoulders, his lowered head, and where there should be a face, just a stain, a distortion that seemed to absorb light, a void more terrifying than any feature. It wasn't an image failure. It was real. It was there. And then, a guttural whisper, coming not from the headphones, but from the laptop speaker, breathed my name, dragging the syllables like an ancient lament. "You?" The live froze, the image frozen, the screen went black, and a connection error appeared. My heart was beating so hard I felt it would explode. The air in the room seemed dense, charged with his presence. I wasn't alone. The figure had crossed over. I threw the phone on the floor, the sound of the screen shattering echoing in the silence. I deleted all my social media, cut my digital connections. I deactivated my phone, my laptop, isolated myself from the virtual world, hoping that silence could break the cycle. But the feeling of being watched didn't go away. It adapted. If before it inhabited pixels, now it found shelter in every reflective surface, in every dancing shadow. I saw its form in the reflections of my window, on the table, in the corner of my eyes. What I saw on the screen was now everywhere, a cold omnipresence. The air in my house seemed heavier, and each shadow gained new depth. I became my own feed, my own walking glitch. Digital terror had become my constant companion, a second skin of shivers. I wished that had been the last glimpse, but the digital silence only opened space for a different echo, older, hungrier, that seemed to have waited for this moment of total vulnerability. After destroying my phone and disconnecting my world, I locked myself at home. The walls of my apartment seemed to close in, each noise amplified by paranoia. That's when I started to hear, at first, indistinct murmurs, coming from inside the walls or from the neighboring apartment. I ignored it, attributing it to stress. But the familiarity increased. I heard my own voice, distorted, as if played underwater, with a ghostly resonance that gave me chills. They weren't words, but fragments of intonations I recognized as mine. That's when, during a cleaning, I found an old cassette recorder, rusty, forgotten in a box from my childhood. Curiosity, dangerous, one. I grabbed batteries and, with trembling hands, turned it on. With a sharp hiss, the tape began to spin. Fragments of my childhood voice, innocent questions, youthful laughter filled the room. Nostalgia was a momentary relief. But there was more. Long pauses, filled with guttural, hissing breathing, a wet and hoarse sound that wasn't mine. Inaudible whispers that seemed to mix with my childish words. I couldn't understand what they said, but the presence was undeniable. And then, I heard my own adult voice, but saying things I had never said, answering questions I didn't remember, in a tone that wasn't mine, but familiar. It was a strange dialogue, a conversation between me and something unknown, recorded in a time I didn't remember. I started to experiment. I recorded some of my words, a simple phrase like "Hello, is anyone there?" When playing it back, an initial hiss. And then, my voice, but with a different tone, deeper, darker, responding to the phrase. Not a pre-existing recording, but a real-time response, with perfect cadence. An intelligence on the other side of the microphone, on the other side of the magnetic tape. The panic gave way to a sick fascination, a desire to understand the inexplicable. Quickly, I discovered rules imposed by the recorder's entity. Don't record after midnight. Never ask to see. Never answer a question with a question. The rules were a constant reminder that I wasn't in control. If I disobeyed, the sound became a sharp roar, a primal scream that made my ears bleed and my head throb with piercing pain, a sonic punishment to break my will. The entity fed on my attention, on my attempt to understand, on my sanity being slowly corroded. It wanted to interact, wanted me to play its macabre game. It was a bridge, and I was paving it with each recorded word. The temptation to go further was irresistible. The rules were clear, but the thirst for answers about who or what this voice was that knew me so well, that imitated my own essence with such perfection, was greater than any fear. One night, long after midnight, with the room immersed in darkness and heart pounding, I grabbed the recorder. The recording LED blinked red, an evil eye warning me. I ignored the first rule. I brought the device to my mouth, feeling cold, damp air emanate. "Who are you?" I whispered, breaking the second rule. The tape spun in tense and prolonged silence, a vacuum that seemed to suck all the oxygen. And then, the sound returned, not hiss or roar, but my own voice, perfectly replicated, deep and full of chilling authority, filled the room, not from the speaker, but from all directions, echoing on the walls, in the air, inside my own head. "I am you, and you woke me up." In that instant, a cacophony erupted, a torrent of sounds that almost made me fall to my knees. Echoes of forgotten childhood laughter, arguments, intimate conversations, embarrassing moments, whispered secrets. My entire life, all my voices, mixed and distorted in a unison scream of agony and recognition, of a possession I never knew was happening. It was a complete record of my auditory existence, but corrupted, reprocessed by an alien intelligence to mock me. I threw the recorder against the wall with desperate force, but the sound didn't stop. It echoed inside me, without need for physical support. My own mind had become the playback machine. The echoes moved inward, finding a new home in the resonant chamber of my mind. Now, I heard my own voices, my own thoughts, but they were constantly twisted, repeated, distorted by a malignant reverberation that seemed to come from inside my mind. And sometimes, a foreign voice, deep and bodiless, responded to my most intimate thoughts, or even formulated them before me, robbing me of authorship of my own consciousness. I couldn't distinguish what was mine and what was the intrusion. The digital entity from the feed and the recorder's voice, together, had built a bridge into my head, demolishing the boundaries of my individuality. I became the echo chamber, the walking resonance of a parasitic presence. With each thought, each memory, an auditory shadow mixed in, reminding me I was no longer alone in my own mind. It was a prison without walls, where my own identity was being diluted, emptied, and filled with something from outside, a cold and alien essence that fed on my disintegration. Then, I started seeing him again, not just in the digital or physical shadows, but in the reflection, the final manifestation of his invasion. The voice inside my head became a distorted mirror of my soul, reflecting horrors and the fragility of my mind. With the incessant echoes and the figure in my eyes, my perception of reality disintegrated into a lucid delirium. I began avoiding mirrors, glass, any surface that could reflect my image. I covered the bathroom mirror, painted my bedroom windows, averted my gaze from shop windows. The slender figure, once a digital glitch, now seemed to solidify, emerge from the liquid reality of reflections, gaining almost physical existence. It was more than a silhouette, a pale and hungry manifestation, a spectral counterpart waiting for me. At first, quick glimpses, a sudden movement in the corner of the mirror, a passing distortion in the shop window. I blinked, and it was gone, but the image remained etched on my retina with disturbing clarity. The persistence of the image, the ineluctable repetition, corroded my sanity. I knew he was there, watching from inside my reflection, waiting for his emergence. The reflections became clearer, the appearances more prolonged. The figure was now undeniably real within the mirrored plane, its presence as palpable as mine. It was tall and thin, with shoulders hunched in calculated predation. Its face was a frightening void, without eyes or features, just a smooth, gray surface that seemed to absorb light, creating a visual vacuum that trapped and sucked me in. Its mouth, a frightening slit, always slightly open, as if always about to scream or devour. What terrified me most was how it copied my movements, but in an erratic, almost mocking way. If I raised my left hand, it raised the right, with a 1-second delay, creating a disturbing mismatch that made me question who was the reflection of whom. It was an imperfect, sickly replica with malevolent intent. I realized that direct gaze was its food, its life force. The more I looked, the clearer the figure became. I tried to cover all the mirrors at home, but the problem wasn't the reflective surface itself. It was the very idea of reflection. The figure appeared on the turned-off monitor, on the black screen of the broken phone, on the metal kettle, in every puddle on the street. The rules that the recorder's voice imposed on me now applied to this mirror me, but with primordial urgency. Don't look for more than 10 seconds. Never bend down to look directly into the eyes. Never smile at it. Never acknowledge it with a welcoming gesture. I felt it wasn't just a figure, but another me trying to cross over, using my image as a bridge to our world, to steal my existence. It wanted my place, and every time I looked at it, I helped it take one more step in that direction. One night, trying to force myself to sleep, exhausted and haunted by lucid nightmares, fear kept me awake. The room was immersed in darkness, illuminated by the dim light from the street. Thirst squeezed my throat. I got up to drink water, and for an instant, saw my figure reflected in the dark glass of the window, like an obsidian mirror. And then, there he was, fully formed, corporeal in his incorporeality, inside the reflection. His arched shoulders, his tilted head, not to imitate me, but to observe me with hungry curiosity, a predator studying its prey. He moved, his elongated limbs stirred, responding to my growing terror, with murderous intent, an explicit desire for possession. His eyes, an empty, icy pressure in my own gaze, were fixed on me, an implacable gravity pulling me. His mouth opened, not in a scream, but in a distorted copy of my terrified face, a cruel and profane mimicry. It was my mouth, gaping in inhuman form, filled with what seemed to be my own teeth, but sharp and numerous, like a shark's, pointing outward in insatiable hunger, promising to devour my essence. I felt a glacial cold pierce my body, as if something was pulling me from inside the reflection, draining my essence, my soul, sucking the life out of me until only hollow remained. I felt my identity drain away, replaced by that empty shell on the other side, a mirrored void within me. I was the shell, emptied and hollow. I was the bridge, open to complete invasion. In an attack of primordial panic, I punched the window with all my strength. The glass shattered into thousands of fragments, cutting my hands and arms, but freeing me, for a moment, from its hypnotic and paralyzing gaze. The figure disappeared from the broken surface, but not from my mind. Now, I see its contours on every polished surface, in every shadow, even in the gleam of people's eyes, or on the surfaces of other screens. It's there, a dark stain on the periphery of my vision, always on the verge of complete materialization, lurking. I'm no longer sure if I'm the original, if my essence is still mine, or just a faint echo of something that has already replaced me, an empty shell moving by inertia, governed by a parasite. The voice whispers in my head, a constant and cruel reminder, I am you, and the void of the mirror calls me, inviting me to lose myself completely in its reality. I moved 3 years ago, to a different city, an apartment without mirrors, covered windows, and avoided screens. I built a new life, reclusive, but without its ostensive presence. Last night, I received a call. The number was from my old address, where it all began. No one had lived there for years. I hesitated, but curiosity and terror impelled me to answer. The voice on the other end was mine, exactly my voice, but with a tone that was never mine, an echo of that distant cacophony. And it was waiting for me, on the other side of the line, in a house that was no longer mine, but which it inhabited.